somebody here wants to talk about the TPE, and you've got the Kevin O'Connor report on, GMs are, blowing up his phone saying Boston's up to something. I mean, again, there's only so much you can do here. You need tradable assets to get something splashy. Celtics don't have a ton. Right now, if you had to rank them, Bobby, go ahead and rank their assets right now, and that would include draft picks if you had to.
So the big bomb of draft picks, like multiple, as I've mentioned, 3+ there, is something teams would obviously be interested in that, even though there would only be mid-level you would project into the future there. So I'd probably put that at 2. Number 1 would be Rob, I'd have to say.
Hey, buddy.
I think 3, you
talking
Tice.
Yeah, I got you.
Oh, good. He's back. We're ranking the Celtics assets right now.
4 is probably that some combination. Well, you got to put Pritchard at 2. I mean, it's not definitive what he is at this point, but he's probably in the upper echelon of those. And then somewhere there's that big pile of picks. And then somewhere behind them is what teams have seen as disappointing first-round picks so far. Romeo Langford and Aaron Nesmith.
So I mean,
there you go.
I think that's kind of a problem.
It certainly is. Now, I look at that and say, why did Kevin O'Connor seem to think that the Celtics, if Bradley Beal did potentially become available, would be a player there? Because that surprised me.
I can't understand in what universe Boston could potentially put together any package. And I'm thinking like the most you could give there would be, what's the most you could give up? 3 first-round draft picks, Nesmith, Romeo,
I think you'd give up
and maybe
6 or 7,
and maybe Marcus Smart, and
then be Marcus. Yeah, I was going to say Marcus.
And you would do the picks. You would do one of these Brooklyn deals, with the 6 years of draft picks, which would include pick swaps on alternating years and 3 first-rounders. That's probably the best you can do in terms of assets. But with Tatum and Brown locked under contract, that pick is never a Boston pick. Is almost guaranteed to never be in the lottery. You're never going to sink below a playoff caliber team with Brown and Tatum on this team. Never. And certainly if you added Beal. So at that point, those picks are trash.
Yeah, teams do like the long-term ones, though, because of the short-term window.
You're 6 years out, but that's different. It's different when you make that trade with Brooklyn and you ship them 3 old guys and you're like, you're going to be bad in 3 years. I know this because you've just gutted your roster for Pierce and KG. But you're going to give Boston 3 stars, 27 and under, and hope that they're going to be bad in 5 years so you can cash in a draft pick. It makes no sense to me. Like, I don't see that that's possible. Brown and Tatum are under 25 years old. You're never going to outrun those picks.
You know what does stick out to – or go ahead, Joe Sway.
No, I was just going to say, especially for a team like the Wizards. I mean, yeah, you got Russell Westbrook there, but, like, you have to cash in on these picks at this point. You're looking for something that – the Brooklyn
they don't have them. They missed that.
Right.
I'm just going to ignore that. Anyway, the one thing I'll say on Beal that does strike me as interesting out of that, because that just wasn't him floating that, unless it's a little like KOC's Boston coming out of him there, is Bradley Beal's connection to Jayson Tatum. And we know the power of a player professing their destination. And if Bradley Beal was picking any destination in the NBA right now, where would it be? Probably be Boston, right?
I know I mean, look, the other teams aren't stupid. Like, you don't have one carrot to dangle here. There's not one centerpiece of a
What are
deal.
the other big assets in the NBA right now? Like, Ben Simmons concerns me. If that could get it done.
Any player, any team who drafted a player in the last 2 years who's promising, I mean, the Celtics haven't done that. That's the problem. If you right now, and again, I know we vastly overrated Tyler Hero in terms of like, is he ready?
That package is gone.
I'm saying in terms of making a leap to, if you had a player like that who at least showed promise, or someone else who you could say, okay, this guy's an up and comer. Yeah, you can absolutely make that. The Celtics don't have anything close to that. The best thing they have right now are rotation players, bench style players on the roster. Maybe, and again, Rob Williams isn't in year 2. Rob Williams is in. You've seen enough of him to have an idea what he's going to be. These are not high-level assets. So I just don't see the splashy move.
Yeah, you'd just be hoping that Beal would angle his way to Boston in a way that Harden did similarly to Brooklyn. So that's your only hope there, because the assets aren't going to jump off the screen. You would just have to have Washington twisted into making that happen, and maybe a third team gets involved. That's always a possibility here. Could you entice another team with all those picks to take on Walker and get a better asset back for that money? If it waits until next season, the TP would be useless at that point anyway for that deal. So they have to match salary at that point. There's a lot of different things that would have to come together. But the fact that it's possible at all, I mean, we weren't there a couple weeks ago. So it's something to get excited about here. There's a hierarchy of things right now with the Celtics. So you think they have the assets to make a marginal addition like Tucker. They can match like a Tice salary there. They can absorb a contract like Barnes because no one else can. And then if this Beal thing's possible, there are a couple different options here. Maybe not this year, but even into next year. So you came into this year, John, saying this team had no flexibility whatsoever. There's a little bit now that
I don't think much. I still don't think much.
There's way more than we imagined before.
The problem is the people who theoretically could be your best trade chips and assets just aren't playing. And that's the problem. You have two guys picked in the lottery the last 2 years who are worthless right now because one of them's been hurt and you haven't seen him, and the other one can't find the floor.
Yeah, so that's an asset. That if he's on the floor, who knows, right? If he hit where his stock will go. But you saw the bright spot too from Nesmith, and I get it. He's a rookie, and these guys against us certainly have earned their keep over him in this rotation. But nothing. I mean, we didn't see much about this whole West Coast road trip.
Sure. Let's say you ended up with let's say Halliburton fell in your lap and he's playing the way he's playing. That's a tradable chip. It's still early. I don't know if he's going to be a star.
Oh, he'd be immensely movable.
But you needed a player of that caliber. And that's why I mentioned Hero. In that range, you at least have a guy who's like, okay, that's somebody I can build off of, and they're young, plus more assets and more trades, plus a couple of other, promising younger players as well. If you had a package like that, you've got a better shot, but they don't have that. They don't have it.
Yeah, and Beal would put this team over the top, certainly. It put them in that range. But ultimately, we're still looking at a really good team here. I mean, people get so caught up about how much Nesmith plays and just all these names at the bottom of the roster and is Semi playing too much and this and that. Ultimately, this team comes down to Brown and Tatum, who are there, Kemba's viability, which we hashed on already, and then they just need some help off that bench, like a nice bench piece. We've talked about a million different names. This team doesn't feel far away when it comes to moves from being in a much better place. Like, it's just one trade for a good rotation player this year could put them back on top stylistically. John, to me, this team right now feels more like they're awkward than they're bad. Like, the lineups are awkward. They're mismatched.
It's awkward. Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
The best players on the team are all at the same position. I see people wanting bigs here. They have enough bigs.
Yeah,
the
that's
big
what we talked about.
fine.
We talked about it. Right now, you have you're the one position where if you did, and I know they need a big because they don't have a traditional big who can really protect the rim, and they don't have that guy. They're all slightly undersized. They're all legitimately undersized. So they don't have a true big, but those guys are effective enough that if you had to rank your problems, that's the last one for me now.
Oh my Lord. I mean, I see people right now saying you need a big more than Bradley Beal. It just, the top of the roster matters more than the bottom or even the middle. Like, you stack that talent at the top. We see what Brooklyn's done right now, and I know they've had troubles defensively, but you'd rather be there than where the Celtics are right now, right?
Well, at least the Celtics are. You have guys that you don't have to completely, revamp the entire roster, or at least it seemed like that's what Brooklyn did, or at least half of it. To Bobby's point here, you cater to the top half of those top tier stars. Those are the ones that are going to take you to the deepest in the playoffs the Celtics can go. Someone that can be that third reliable guy next to Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, because right now it's just not Kemba Walker, and he's not showing any signs that he's going to change.
This whole center thing just drives me crazy. Is center? Can we get a consensus right now that center is not the problem on this team?
Like I said, I said it last game. I don't think it's the biggest problem. Could they use an upgrade? Sure, you can use an upgrade a lot of places. And I'd be happy if you were able to fold Tristan into a deal to upgrade that big position. Absolutely, I'll take that. But it's not the first thing I'm doing. First thing I'm doing, as I said, the shooting and wing depth is far more important. And again, I told you after we played them last week, I fully talked myself into Harrison Barnes. That to me is that would be, I think that's the best available. That's the best player I think you could possibly get with the TPE if they could find a way to make it work. And I'd be willing to dish a first round pick or two if that's what it took.
Or even get a little aggressive there. This might have to be the year where they pay a little bit more, and it does frustrate me a little bit to hear KOC on NBC earlier saying that if the price is right. Is this really going to be a Price is Right year?
Well, it can't be a Price is Right year in the sense that, look, and again, as someone asked here on the chat, the TPE, when does the TPE expire? They have it. They have a full year on it. But realistically, the place to use it here is at the trade deadline. And yeah, you can theoretically use it in the offseason as well. But it seems like all signs point to this being a mid-season acquisition. So really, there's no excuse to not upgrade. Every trade deadline, when you have a pretty good team and you look around, you can make that case that, okay, Danny didn't make a move because the cost was too high. And when you're talking about mortgaging actual assets or actual players on the team they're contributing, you get why Danny stood pat. Standing pat is the reason they still have Jaylen, and other players along the way. You can't do that now. You have to do something.